Hello, and welcome to another session of Stelmo's Rants and Raves. I'm Stelmo. Let's jump in here. So I live in a very red state, Florida, and our governor is Governor Ron DeSantis, who, if I had to grade his overall performance, he would get an A plus, I suppose, for running the state. But he also did one thing, and as far as I'm concerned, just that one little thing makes him not a prime candidate for any further office. I know it was rumored that Donald Trump was thinking of offering him an administrative position, and I, I suppose that's probably going to end up happening. But I think that's a mistake. Now, why do I think that? Well, here in Florida, there was a Medicare provider who had grossly overcharged the state. And so I think that the amount that they had overcharged was somewhere around $67 million or so. And as part of the agreement that the governor entered into, $10 million would go from this company to an NGO, a nonprofit run by Governor DeSantis' wife. And she, in turn, took the money that belonged to the state, and she provided it for political ads and the like. And let's just say that this was not exactly legal. But you know what happens is absolute power corrupts absolutely. And, the Republicans are in charge here in Florida. And let me be honest here, the Democrats are not a viable alternative. They are so far whacked out that I don't see how anybody can support them. Just maybe that, I don't want to say that because I'll be condemned because I'm putting down certain groups of people. But let me just say, you'd have to not be paying attention. But so, $10 million is a lot of money. Now, I don't know. I consider myself a news junkie, and I couldn't tell you when we went to this transfer where the government started paying out all of this money to NGOs. I mean, let me point out again, we don't have this money. We're borrowing this money. We're saddling future generations with a awesome debt that's never going to be fully paid back. It just there's no reasonable way that it can be done. And so I suggest there's going to be at some point a lot of people who lose a lot of money. But the problem is we have these politicians who are just raping the country. And gee, I hope I can say that word here. Probably not, but I have to be careful. It's sad that we just can't speak without having these limitations put on us. And can you just imagine what it would be like if the socialists finally usurped power? It would be horrific. But we're finding out all of this stuff that the Democrats have done. And we're also finding out, not to the same extent, but to some extent, there are things that Republicans have done. And that's where this story with Governor DeSantis comes in. Now, I got this information from what I consider to be an impeccable source, and that is Matt Gaetz. I think Matt Gaetz would have made the perfect attorney general, which is why the deep state was so adamant that there was no way he was ever going to be put in that position. But just because the Republicans have power doesn't mean it's okay for them now to do it. And see, that's why I think we're ultimately doomed, because nobody anymore seems to have the morals and ethics that are necessary. Corruption has been around forever. We know that. But it's so far over the top right now. And because we don't have the money, we're borrowing it, we're putting ourselves further in debt. This is a horrible place to be, but nonetheless, it's where we're at. And anyway, getting back to this, so the governor's wife, Casey DeSantis, runs this Hope, Florida. Like I say, it's an NGO, and they get this $10 million from a settlement, and then it goes for political purposes. It's just not right. It's not right when I always used to say to myself, the Democrats' policies are so unpopular. Where are they getting the money from? Now, I know they get a lot of money from Hollywood and stuff, but it just seemed to me that they always seem to be ahead of the Republicans. And I said that this is so illogical. Well, we've now found out the reason why. And that is because we're paying. We're paying illegal, they're getting all this illegal money, and we're paying for it. And it's just a corrupt system, and a corrupt system like this cannot collapse or cannot last long. It's going to collapse upon itself. And I think the implosion has started. You got all the problems right now in private credit. You got banks. And, this gives me, I think, a prime opportunity to talk about some of the other fraud that really drives me crazy. The big banks, led by J.P. Morgan Chase, have manipulated the precious metals markets for years. For years, they have done this. And every year they pay a fine. Now, last year, the fine was close to $1 billion. But you know what? As much as that fine was, the profit that they make is so much greater. And where does that profit come from? Well, it doesn't come from the 1%. It comes from the middle class. These families that they stretch their budget, and here and there they go and they buy themselves an ounce of this or an ounce of that precious metal, and they never make any money on it because the price stays the same. And if they don't know what they're doing, they're also paying a monthly fee to, let's say, the bank, like, for instance, J.P. Morgan Chase. They pay a fee for them to hold the metal. And, of course, they don't really hold the metal. They just say they do. And, it's a terrible con job. And the way I see it, the government is complicit in this because they never give a fine that is so punitive in nature, it stops the thievery. But our government is apparently content with these big banks stealing money from the middle class. I'm not going to make this a religious channel or anything, but let me point out that Jesus did throw the money changers out of the temple. He was infuriated by them. And I can understand why. These people are leeches. They're vicious leeches. And unfortunately, our government is in bed with them. And these are the things that really bother me. These are the things that I would hope that a Republican administration would clean up. Perhaps Donald Trump would clean this up if he knew about it. But I don't think his people, Lutnick or Besant, I don't think either one of them are going to go, Mr. President, you need to really penalize these banks so they stop doing that. Nope, that's not what happens. The government's happy because they take in this case, last year, close to $1 billion from J.P. Morgan Chase. I don't know how much the other banks pay, but they're paying money too. So the government's taking all this money in. The government's happy, and all these middle-class families are crying because their investment is not doing well. It's staying stale and stagnant, and that's their intent and design. And, right now you're seeing, I believe, what is a collapse because the Asian markets, people are paying a much heftier price for certain precious metals. And that's because it's become a supply and demand thing. And I think that is a factor that these loons that keep pilfering from us haven't taken into account. And I think it's all part of what this whole system is going to collapse, in my opinion. It's going to come tumbling down by the weight of all of this debt. And I don't know how much longer it's going to take to happen, but it's not going to take too much longer. We're in a doom loop. And our only way to salvation is for us to put clean politicians in office. And the voters have to be willing to vote out incumbents every so often, because once they get too entrenched in there, all they learn how to do is to steal our money, and that doesn't bode well for the future of this country. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I wanted to, just briefly discuss why I think, DeSantis has established to me that he is dishonest. He is willing to take money that, as role of governor, he does have some control over, but not for it to be spent the way it was. You just don't give away. The governor doesn't have the power to just give away the state's money like happened here. And then the fact that they used it for illicit purposes is just beyond the pale. So anyway, you all have a great day. Stay safe. Crazy world out there. It gets crazier each time I look at the news, but we have to deal with it. Bye-bye.